Hello, huge movie fanatic Nate, stopping on by. This time I'm coming at you for a movie review. Imagine that. Today I'm coming at you to review Zombie Holocaust, also known as Dr. Butcher, MD. Um, that's the title. Dr. Butcher, MD is the title for the North American release of this movie. The Italian-American production, very much with Lucio Fulci's Zombie. As a matter of fact, this movie stars the same British guy, Ian McCulloch, or whatever the hell his name is, as well. This came out like a year after Zombie, so I want to say, and the sets, the sets from the end of Zombie were also used in this movie, so they probably. It's a really goofy situation. I don't know a lot about this movie, but I would imagine they used that same building. They filmed the scenes for the end of this before they burnt it down for Zombie or something like that, because it's the exact same pretty much building from the end of Zombie as well. So I don't imagine they burned it down and built it up again. They probably, maybe they used that building for even more movies before they burned it down. But that's kind of cool. But I have this on. This is a Shriek Show DVD release. It has a reversible cover. This is the cover that I regard as the more interesting cover of this release, the Dr. Butcher MD cover. So this is the only thing I've got it on besides that Dr. Butcher MD VHS. And I gave this a rewatch, the Shriek Show DVD release of Zombie Holocaust, and it's got the cut of Zombie Holocaust on there. It doesn't have the cut of Dr. Butcher MD, which is I think basically the same thing except for different opening credits situation. But I remember this movie being maybe a little more entertaining than it actually it is. I mean, I don't know. I might find maybe the first third of this movie to potentially be more interesting than the rest of it. I kind of like the stuff that takes place in New York at the beginning, and the creepy ass. The movie begins with this character just going into a morgue and like sawing a dead corpse's hand off and putting it in a bag and just taking it away. And it's just kind of like there's a couple of those scenes. Like I think two of those scenes in this at the beginning, early part of this movie, and those scenes are just kind of creepy. Why is someone going in there and freaking cutting a hand off and putting it in a bag and taking it away? I guess he needed a hand, but some of those scenes are like for me some of the creepiest scenes in this movie before the culprit is found out or whatever, and then he goes to jump out the window and land on the ground and his arm breaks off because it's just a dummy that they threw out the window. And it's funny because when they go down and look at the body, his arm's on again. So it's just kind of like so sloppy and just funny. But I will say, just like with so many, late 70s, early 80s Italian, horror movie situations, this movie does have that nasty ass sadistic kind of just Italian horror aspect to it, and the gore is just kind of over the top and nasty, and it's just like ooh, really nasty. But the beginning of this movie starts with it just revolves around this medical center where this person's going in and cutting arms off, or I can't remember what he did. I can't remember what the guy does the second time, if he cuts out a heart and eats it or something like that or whatever. I know he does that when he's caught or whatever, but the movie just, I don't know, it's just a gore fest, I mean, it's not like just all kinds of gore, but the movie's just an exploitative movie about this hot ass, the hot blonde chick in this movie is like really really kind of a nice body, and just hot ass blonde chick in this movie. And I just saw this less than a week ago, or just rewatched it less than a week ago, and it's kind of a mind wipe situation. It's just revolves around this hot chick who's works at this, maybe is this surgeon's assistant, or maybe it's like a medical school situation or whatever, because there's a scene where they're like teaching patient, or teaching, God, I can talk, teaching students or whatever, and they're laughing, and the guy's like, this is highly offensive to be laughing in anatomy class and all this and that. But the movie at the beginning, I mean, I guess the hot blonde chick is more or less kind of the main star situation before she ends up teaming up with the British guy from Zombie. But I don't know. I guess she works as this surgeon's assistant, teaching students or whatever. And you've got this stuff going on where people are, where corpses are being mutilated, and cadavers are being mutilated in the in the morgue or whatever, and they wants to get in, get to the bottom of it, and she at the same time she's interested in this cannibalism, tribes study that she's studying, this keto, or is it keto? Every time you see that knife with that logo on it, it's like the music is like or whatever. And so there's this cult, or this tribe of cannibals that practice keto or whatever it is. I don't, you know what, this movie isn't that memorable. So that's the basic gist of this movie. So I don't exactly know why they go out on an expedition to find this tropical island where these natives are. Is it just because the cadavers are being mutilated at the place she works? Anyway, she ends up, hooking up with this Ian McCulloch from Zombie, the blonde-haired British guy, and very much, I mean, if you've seen Zombie, in a way, you really don't even need to see this, because this is in my opinion, it's just a remake of Zombie, more or less, except it's not quite as, I would rather, I think Zombie's the better movie compared to this. It's like a lowbrow version of Zombie, and I'm not saying that there's not stuff in this movie we're seeing, like the gore and the hot blonde chick you see, naked a couple times and stuff like that. But it's definitely, in my opinion, the lower rent version of Lucio Fulci's Zombie. So just like with Zombie, it starts in New York and they end up going to, freaking tropical island. And there's actually several shots of the Land Rover or whatever it is driving from the shots from Zombie. That one shot where it's in that dusty town and it drives by that donkey just standing in the middle of the street. I mean, that shot from Zombie is used in this movie, and it's just the same thing as Zombie, except for the bad guy in this movie. The guy, the Sean Connery lookalike guy from Zombie, isn't really a bad guy in Zombie, whereas in this movie the guy who's holed up in on this tropical island in the same kind of building, it is probably the same building from Zombie, is kind of an evil doctor guy who's trying to combine pieces from corpses and cadavers and transplant brains. It's just kind of like this mad scientist guy who's like an evil guy. The one thing I liked about, Zombie compared to this is the Sean Connery lookalike guy wasn't the bad guy. He was just the guy who, I don't even remember what he was doing, but I just liked the fact that there wasn't like a bad guy in Zombie, whereas this one they just make this guy a bad guy and whatever. But I mean, this movie's saving grace is the gore, and the way it portrays like the natives and stuff on these islands are just kind of funny, and it's just like it's just the gore is really sadistic, nasty, like you'd find in Italian horror movies of this from this era and stuff. And as I said, I mean, if you're a heterosexual male or a gay woman or whatever, if you appreciate female form, if you will, you'll enjoy this movie just for the blonde in it, I guess. But there's a really kind of a cool moment where the frickin' and for some reason, like the movie ends up with kind of low rent kind of Italian zombies in this movie. I can't even remember why there's really even zombies. It's probably just this Dr. Butcher. I mean, he's not Dr. Butcher in the movie by the name of Zombie Holocaust, but it's probably just this doctor's experiments that are zombies that are wandering around the island or whatever. But there's this kind of cool little bit where the evil doctor sends the British guy and the hot blonde to a raft to get off the island, only to send a zombie to go kill him or whatever. I mean, we can only assume that. And there's this really cool moment where he uses an outboard motor and basically just destroys the zombie's head and face with this outboard motor, using it as basically a zombie face saw, which is really kind of interesting. The first time I became aware of this movie was in it was actually December 31st, 2000, when I rented and saw for the very first time New Year's Evil on the old early 80s VHS release of that movie. There was a trailer at the end of the movie after New Year's Evil for Dr. Butcher, MD, and that was the first time I became aware of that movie, and I'd go on to rent that VHS not long after and see the, Dr. Butcher, MD. I probably rented the same, kind of VHS tape that I showcased on this channel. And, I wasn't really blown away. The trailer really made the movie just look like a, just a beginning to end just nonstop gore fest. And I guess the movie Obviously, you can't have 90 minutes of nonstop gore or whatever, or you probably wouldn't want to see that either. Um, but I can't remember what I thought of the movie. When I saw it years, in early 2001 or whatever. Probably kind of how I feel about it now. Like, it's got cool aspects to it, but it's if you don't see this movie, if you end up missing out on this movie, you're not missing out on all that much, especially if you've seen zombies. So at the end of the day, I'll give Zombie Holocaust, aka Dr. Butcher, MD, 2 stars out of 4 stars. There's worse movies out there, but there's definitely better movies out there, like Zombie, for example. It's interesting how it makes you wonder how many more movies, Italian movies of this time, like late 70s, early 80s, utilize that same building. Were there more movies that they filmed where they used that building before they burnt it down? Because the building ends up being supposedly set on fire at the end of this movie as well, but you can tell that the fire is much more like controlled at the end of this movie, and then they just use the shot of it burning from the end of Zombie, that building on the tropical island or whatever. But yeah, that'll be my review for Zombie Holocaust, aka Dr. Butcher MD. Thank you very much for watching this review, and as always, we'll catch you on the next one.